On today's show, the San Diego Padres win their first series against the Cardinals post-trade deadline with, oh boy, a lot of rejuvenation with not just this lineup, but the starting pitching and potentially World Series aspirations back on the table.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, August 4th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for almost 6 years now, and not just for this podcast, but various other outlets, including JustBaseball.com, chief among them. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Go check that out. And go check me out on the socials, Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. Remember to go also tune in for the postcasts that my guy Big Jim Grease hosts after every game if you want immediate sort of stuff and you want to, put your stuff in the comments. The live shows. Everybody likes the live shows. And I was on yesterday, so every now and then I tune in. We're also going to have him on the show this week. But today's episode, guys, we are recapping this weekend, just kind of the big takeaways from the first series of the official Padres almost, right? Like, this is a team that we knew, I think at least, we knew from the beginning of the year. Right, we talked with a bunch of different people, not just people that I've talked to who are closer to the team, but everybody you've heard from was like, this roster was not going to stay the same, right? So it was almost like that was part one, and now we're at part two, right? Post-trade deadline with all the moves they made, from Nestor Cortes to Ramon Laureno to obviously Mason Miller, all of that stuff. So I think this is actually like a really fun time to watch the Padres. It's always fun to watch the Padres. I mean, look at all the stuff behind me. Shout out little Tatis bobblehead over here. But I think that in general, that this was a pretty good weekend for the Padres. I think that while it would have been nice to get a sweep, it is unfortunate, and it was a little sad, the game that they lost on Saturday, only because win streaks are super fun. They had won 6 in a row at that point, and then they do drop the second game of this series after starting off so good, right? Like that game on Saturday, they lose 8-5. They start off 4-0, right? With a Manny Machado RBI, a Ramon Laureno triple, a Freddy Fermín sacrifice, and even a Jackson Merrill homer, who, by the way, Jackson Merrill looking a little bit better lately. He also had a big RBI on Sunday's game. In the bottom of the 7th inning, a big triple to bring in 3 runs. So good weekend for him. Also a good weekend for Ramon Laureno, new left fielder. A home run on Sunday's game as well. The game was already out of reach, don't get me wrong, but just to see him have those RBI triples, him put together some good at-bats, have a single on Sunday's game. That would be one of my big takeaways, is that I'm pretty sure from this weekend alone that Ramon Laureano, what he did, probably raised the overall OPS by Padres left fielders this year by about, I don't know, a bajillion, right? Like, it was just amazing to see that. It's really cool to see the team that had, through the 7th through 9 order, the bottom third of their lineup had the worst OPS in all of Major League Baseball. Part of that was, hey, Jake Cronenworth's more of a walks guy, right? More of a walks utility player, so he's not the type of guy that is going to be as excitement-inducing, right, necessarily. And then, of course, the atrocious performance by both catchers, Elias Diaz, but particularly Martin Maldonado, who's been designated for assignment. Like, just to be able to say that now Gavin Sheets is a bench bat for us that you can utilize in certain lineups depending on what you want to do is just excellent, right? And then you have Xander Bogaerts doing a lot better too. So all in all, like, just exciting times, right? The Padres are going to be playing the D-backs now, which is usually a tough series. Granted, one thing that's very nice is that the D-backs sold everybody at the trade deadline. Eugenio Suarez, Merrill Kelly, Josh Naylor, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be a cakewalk, right? So it's good that the Padres need to keep their momentum going. Also, though, in Sunday's game, Dylan Cease, 5 innings in this one, only 1 hit allowed and 1 walk allowed, no runs, 9 strikeouts. Been the tale of two cities for him the last 4 starts, right? He had a great start against the Nationals, 5 1/3 in that one, striking out 10, allowing no earned runs. Then he had the bad start against the Mets, in which he was doing well. He actually had, like, we talked about this last week, one of his Chad moments, aside from the fact that I was at the game. giving as much good mojo as I possibly could, of course, as you all know. But also the fact that he struck out two batters. I believe it was Francisco Lindor was one of them, and I believe Juan Soto was the other. I could be wrong. After getting hit. But oh no, it wasn't. Lindor's the one who hit the ball that hit off of Cease. Anyway, we're backtracking, but you guys get my point. And then he gives up the grand slam. So Dylan Cease, like, it's nice to see any good start. I don't care what the team he plays against, but my overall takeaway from Dylan Cease start would be this: I'm adamant that trading him would have been a mistake, especially after all the assets you gave up. And I'm not just talking about the Leo DeVries, obviously. I'm talking about like guys like Stephen Kolek, guys like who was the other guy we gave up? Stephen Kolek, the Kolek Kingdom, and then Ryan Berger, my boy, right? So the latter of which has been on the show before. Like, it didn't make sense to trade Cease. I really stand by that, and I stand by, unless you got some team to overpay, it is literally more worth it to just hope that he turns into regular Dylan Cease for the rest of the time, right? So good overall performance from the starting pitchers. Dylan Cease with the stud performance of the weekend. Saturday's game, not the best. Randy Vasquez. We got to pour one out for our guy, Randy Vasquez. Pouring one out. 4 innings, 5 earned runs in this one, and a lot of them coming from, a Nolan Gorman single, but then a huge Pedro Pajes home run. Not great, right? Not great. But in general, also the Padres just stopped scoring after the bottom of the 3rd inning. Do I feel like it's fair that Randy Vasquez was demoted? Yeah, because we've been saying for a while that the stuff just doesn't excite a lot, right? Like, the fact that he had as many quality starts as he did, without striking out basically anybody and walking more batters than he struck out all season, I think him lasting as long as he did is pretty amazing. But that doesn't mean he didn't have value. And I still think that he could be an important piece of this team going forward, potentially as a long inning reliever, multi-inning reliever, whichever terminology you prefer. He just doesn't have the swing and miss stuff, and he's not generating enough soft contact, particularly on the ground, to, like, you're going to have starts like this. So that's what happened, and I think the Padres are like, you know what? It's time. They bring up Nestor Cortes, who they traded for at the deadline. Hopefully he could give them something, a little bit more upside there. But Randy, regardless, a nice stretch for him. Like, with it, where this team has been, even if it might have been a little bit lucky, the fact that he had like a sub-4 ERA for as long as he did, even that it still means a lot that he was able to come in and fill innings for a team that had a bad Dylan Cease, that had Michael King injured, that had Yu Darvish injured, that had Joe Musgrove injured, that just in general had a lot of the back end unfigured out. Really cool to see Randy Vasquez. So we love you, man. Hoping for the best for him going forward. But folks, we're not done. Obviously, with this episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about the games from this weekend. Not doing a full recap, right? And then we're getting into the mailbag questions, because it is Monday mailbag time, guys, and you sent in a lot of questions. But first, one word from one of our sponsors. And that sponsor is the one that you heard at the top of the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot, whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends. This one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, guys. I mean, sometimes when you're on that course, you need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized, and they do that for you with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the beverage cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5, the literal number 5, hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with another promotion. The code is not good on subscription orders as well, but whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. So go check that out and order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots to friggin' day. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving and vibing into the second segment of this here podcast. Remember to follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. I guess one bad thing for this weekend, if there is anything bad, yes, I understand that they lost Saturday, but I'm not freaking out over that. Our boy Yuki Matsui, even in a super low leverage situation, gives up 2 runs. Man, he's been tough, guys. It's been tough watching this. 5.09 ERA right after he had a couple decent outings. He's just like, I mean, thank God he's just a purely low leverage, like, fifth inning guy at this point because of how good this bullpen is, especially with the new additions. But really not great there. The Padres also won Friday's game, and not much to report here other than nasty Nick Pivetta. Again, being amazing. One of the best signings of the entire offseason. That is not hyperbole. That is not me being Padres biased. There have been some other good ones. Gleyber Torres of the Detroit Tigers, literally being an all-star at second base, is a good example. But overall, just good stuff. 7 innings in that one. 1 earned run on just 1 hit. 0 walks, 5 Ks. And it was a Wilson Contreras home run. Whatever. And the Padres put together some runs. Overall, as well, by the way, another Jackson Merrill RBI game. Really, really good weekend for the boy, right? And there's nothing about what I've seen, any of the data, that tells me I'm worried about Jackson Merrill as an overall player. Am I a little bit worried about like how he will be this season? Sure, because that's what we talked about before the season. When you don't walk and a lot of your power is comes to fruition in the second half of your rookie year season, and a lot of it late game heroics and stuff like that, especially when you weren't a player that was expected to be able to tap into the power immediately. There was a little bit of a surprise that he did last year. That left me like a little, not concerned, but just like, what if he's not this like 6-win player that I think a lot of people were projecting, considering that he was a 5-win player his last year, right? So I get that. But overall, this weekend, 2 for 4, 2 for 4, and 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs in that triple on Sunday. Like, great weekend series for him. Hopefully he can keep it going. I have confidence he can get it back together. But even if he doesn't, man, this Padres lineup is good, man. This Padres lineup, everything about this team looks pretty great, right? Robert Suarez, is a little bit scary. He does get the save in Friday's game. And I forgot to mention this on Sunday's game. I don't know about you guys. Not going to lie, I did get a little bit nervous, right? Adrian Morejon used in a non-save situation, which I totally get. Like, I'm not going to do the thing where I critique and attack Schilt for the way he manages the bullpen. Bottom line is he's got to use guys at some point, right? And almost all of the guys at our bullpen are nasty, right? So I don't mind him going with Morejon there, and it's not his fault that Morejon just imploded and couldn't get a single out, and they had to bring in Suarez. So that's a little bit of a negative, and we'll have to watch that heading into this series. So they really need to get a decent start out of one of their rotation guys. That way, we aren't in a situation too much in which the Padres are really struggling, and we're saying, oh God, we need to bring in, we don't want to have basically the bullpen have to get 5 innings in tonight's game or 5 innings in tomorrow's game, right? Because you want to be able to rest them. I know they have an off day on Thursday, but nonetheless, still a little tiny thing to work out, and it'll be JP Sears making his Padres debut versus Brandon Pfaadt of the D-backs. Curious to see how it goes. Hopefully they can turn those back-end starters that they got with Nestor Cortes and JP Sears into being just as effective, or at least almost as effective as what Stephen Kolek, the Kolek Kingdom never dies, and Ryan Berger. So we'll have to see. But folks, that is it for the basic recap. Again, I didn't want to do like a play-by-play for every game. That's what our boy Jim Grease on the postcast is for. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get notifications when that goes live. But folks, let's talk about the mailbag, folks. And you guys sent in a lot of comments this week, and I loved it. I loved it. I always appreciate you guys. So let's get into it, right? At Eric Jeanette 2760 says, Royals fan here. Fermín was a fan favorite in Kansas City. Awesome arm and good contact hitter. 2 RBIs in his first game. I'll be checking in to see how he does for you guys. Yeah, by the way, Freddy Fermín. Really nice start. And what I like about Freddy Fermín is also he grades out pretty well as a defensive catcher. He does go 2 for 3 in Sunday's game. He's got a 260 average this year. Technically a 429 average if you want to be funny with the Padres. So really good stuff. 1 for 4 game in his first game for the Padres with the 2 RBIs and then 2 for 3 on Sunday. I think that he's just going to be a below WRC plus guy. Right? Like, this is a guy who might have just a 95, 90 WRC plus, but you have to remember that for catchers, that's okay. And overall, this Padres team with their catching system, I know that the Kolek and Berger felt like a hefty price to pay. I was one of those people who thought that, but they needed it so badly, man. And considering that Luis Campusano, clearly there's got to be something more to it. The fact that they never let him play, I'm all for it, right? Like, if he could just be a decent catcher, that's enough. And Elias Diaz, not a nightmare catcher the way that Maldonado was, but as a backup, a lot better role for him, right? Like, just genuinely a lot better. And maybe he could do better that way. So we'll have to see. And hopefully he can work with the pitchers better, but we will see. And speaking of working with the pitchers. At Ash on voice crack there. That was weird. Ash on Blue Sky says, even she showed up this weekend, but I've been wondering how much it has been the veteran catchers with baseball knowledge that has had him down. His first really solid game when Diaz caught for him instead of Maldonado, and now this epic one from Fermín. Granted, Cards are not a good offense, but still. Another part of that I also would say is some framing. The Padres got some pretty good calls their way in Sunday's game. There was a couple strike calls that definitely went their way, and part of that has to be attributed to Freddy Fermín. We'll see how it plays in a more extrapolated sample size, but yeah, like this is what happens when this is why Maldonado annoyed me so much, because he was a 40-year-old who hadn't been good for 4 years, and it's not like the only thing going for him was that he was a veteran, couldn't hit, struck out too much, couldn't frame, couldn't throw out runners, and let a lot of pass balls go by. So that's what was annoying me so much, where I was like, I actually genuinely would just give Campusano a shot. Like, can he be that much worse? I don't know, but I do agree with you. I don't like veteran or a catcher that's associated, like we have to have this guy just because it's the preference of the pitcher. I don't like operating like that. I just like taking the best catchers. They're good. They'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Joe Musgrove brought this up a few years ago with Luis Campusano, because some people wanted their own catcher with Caratini and all that stuff, and he was like, no, I'm going to work with the guy and figure it out if he's going to help our team and be better. So, good stuff. Next comment, though, let's see. Speaking of Kansas City and the Royals, Kansas City, according to Mr. Brubin 9, says Kansas City likes Niebla because he trimmed arms. KC likes Niebla, trimmed arms a la Waka, Lugo, Berger, and Kolek. Wonder if they will offer Rubin big money if contractually they can get him. Well, I will say he is extended for a few more years for the Padres, but I think it's interesting to keep an eye on that. I'm surprised Ruben Niebla was acquired by us, and specifically acquired to be a pitching coach still. Is that his destiny? Does he just want to be a pitching coach? But with what he's done, I'm surprised he hasn't had a bigger role in some way. Like turning a lot of decent arms into great arms, all the stuff in Cleveland. Cleveland was surprised from people that I know, people who are close to the Guardians organization, fans, people who cover them, were like, they were surprised that he wasn't the manager, that they didn't send down Francona or they didn't move on and then just say, all right, this is going to be our new manager moving forward. Who knows? Maybe he wanted more money. I don't know what it is, but glad to have him. And yeah, maybe Berger and Kolek will become that for the Royals, but we'll have to see. And if you're wondering why they gave up too steep of a price, I bet you probably was like, ugh, okay, fine, but we really need a catcher, so we're desperate. So we'll see. And at least he has a couple years of control until maybe a Salas is ready or some other option presents itself. But guys, we are not done answering your questions. We got a whole bunch more to go through. But first, we're going to take one more break before we get to them. And they're going to be fun. Trust me, we got a lot of fun questions this week. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. But first, let me tell you about another one of our sponsors. It's a timeless one that you guys know all too well, and that is our friends over at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? And with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Sounds good to me as an anti-beach propagandist myself. And if you're new to FanDuel, don't worry. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing as always, continuing with the mailbag in this final segment. Remember, if you want to be featured on the show, Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno, or send some comments on the YouTube, which I know you guys love to do. Next question comes from the always reliable Rama Murdy via Blue Sky. Says, hi, Javier. Question for Monday's show. After all trade deadline madness for the Padres, have you changed your prediction for how the team will finish this season? If you now think they will be in the playoffs, how far can we go? I'm not going to say how far they could go in the playoffs, only because I think once you're in, it really is a little bit of like a little bit of a crapshoot, and it's just, are you spending money? Right? Like that's one thing we realize, right? I make fun of the Brewers all the time. If you're not in the top half of payroll, history shows that you are not winning the World Series. You just don't. Like, you can make the playoffs and like maybe even win a series, but you're going to lose. That's how I knew they would lose last year. I think the Padres are really set up in every way, and I think the key here is that their lineup, with the exception of Freddy Fermín, every single player in that lineup is an above 100 WRC plus. They have all above average hitters. That means their lineup is deep. I feel like with these new additions, particularly with the offensive side, right? I understand we have Nestor and Mason Miller too, but with the offensive side, I view it as Laureano can now be this year's version of last year's Profar, right? Our left fielder. Ryan O'Hearn, he can be this year's version of last year's Donovan Solano. I'm not saying they're the same players. I'm just saying a big reason why the Padres were good last year is because they had those depth options figured out. And then you have Freddy Fermín being this year's version of last year's Cal Higashioka. That could potentially happen. And there's room to grow with this Padres lineup. Xander Bogaerts has been playing a lot better. That's really exciting. Right? Like, genuinely really, really exciting. And then you've got Jake Cronenworth, who's the 8 hitter, and he's got a 113 WRC plus on the season. You've got Jackson Merrill, who's only got a 110 WRC plus this season, and I think he has room to grow, right? Especially if you look at his expected weight on base, it's 364. Like, he has room to get even better. And then you have Tatis. Can he unlock it? Maybe. But either way, being a 130 WRC plus is good. Manny Machado, potentially an MVP player this season. We'll see. The fact that everybody here, Luis Arraez, he could get better. 110 WRC plus. He's been really showing some signs of life, of being a hitting machine more lately. Everyone in this lineup is good, I think, above average, and there are guys getting even better. So you could make the argument that this second half could be the same type of second half we saw last year with the Padres. So I'm absolutely, finally, retinkering my prediction post-deadline, right? Post-deadline, new team, my thing. And maybe I should have incorporated that, by the way, into my preseason prediction, is taking more into account what they were going to do at the trade deadline. But still, it was projecting the future, so I didn't know for sure. Yes, I do think they will make the playoffs. I do think they win a series. I don't know where they go after that, though. It gets a little bit weird. More, though, on the postseason, Zachary Shelton says, how great this team already is with a complete pitching staff and contributors at every spot of the hitting rotation. Why can't it be that this is the year for the team? Also, if Musgrove can come back and pitch for the postseason, that is even more of a threat. I wouldn't hang my hat and cape on all of that, expecting Musgrove to come back. But let me tell you, if he does come back, and he is a gamer, this is a guy who puts all this stuff on his ears that just hurts you, apparently, according to Andrew McCutcheon, at least, if everybody knows what I'm talking about. Like, he's a gamer. He's ready to do what it takes. Wouldn't surprise me if he makes it back in time to potentially do something for them in October. We'll have to see. I think it is going to depend on his health. But if they're doing okay, and they're like, hey, we have the opportunity here, I could see Musgrove being used. We'll have to see, though. We'll have to see. At Billy Watson 5149 says, don't count my boy Matsui out. Huge NPP fan myself, and he's legit just having a bad year. The ball size has been messing with his mechanics. He can still turn it around. LFGSD. And then Tony Sue also commented, says, signs of promise and working hard. Last year, his fastball had below average velocity and barely usable velocity. This year he added a couple miles per hour to the fastball to be average, which was very important. Too bad this was his much anticipated splitter hasn't been a big difference maker. For now, if he could fit the role reliably, though, he's a very valuable piece of this bullpen. I think he has room to grow, but I will say Tony Sue, Yuki Matsui, I think the concerning thing about him, and the reason I've been out on him, is that only positive thing he's changed is that batters are pulling the ball in the air less, but it's only by 3%. It's still bad, right, at 23.7%, and the advanced stats on all of his stuff is really bad. First of all, four-seam fastball velocity is not up. Last year it was an average of 92.2. This year it's 92.1. Not a big difference, thankfully, but fastball, they're slugging 571 off of it this year. Split finger, they're hitting 290 off of it. And yes, expected batting average on it is 224, so maybe they're getting a little bit lucky there. But the slider, which was really good for him last year, they're hitting 296 against it. So here's what I'm trying to say. Every pitch has gotten worse by the numbers in basically every way. He's not even generating any whiffs on the slider anymore. Just 23.5% whiff rate, and then last year it was 45%, right? And a 41% on his split finger. It's just looking really bad. Maybe they can fix him, but I do say a lot that with this pitching staff, with the coaching staff, frankly, that he has gotten this much worse. I think it says something that this might not be a very good player, but hey, at least they don't need him to be as much anymore, right? At El Hada 1 says, the Padres better win this year because they just traded half their farm. It'll be fun to watch, so that's for sure. I agree. But hey, look, they've been saying we're at what's it called? That it's what's the word? That it's win now, and they've been telling me this for 5 years, and we're still in win now. Win now doesn't usually mean you have a 5-year stretch. You know what I'm saying? So here's what I'm going to post to you guys. Is it possible that AJ Preller has found something out? Is it possible that Major League Baseball, that he's exposing, right? Not to get too heady, that he's exposing that prospects are absolutely important, but if you have a good scouting system and you find them, that the reason they don't get traded is just because teams don't want to, they can't because of ownership, and they're like, I can't sign a guy, so I have to hope that these farm guys are great. I think he might be exposed to something. Maybe he's figuring something out. So all I'm saying is this: will not be surprised if next year Cash Mayfield, top 100 prospect, right? I won't be surprised. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying I won't be surprised. I trust this regimen. I really do. And although I have problems with giving up DeVries, because I just think he was like a really high price asset that I don't want to give up just yet, we'll have to see. At John 94949 says, apologies for last night. Had a meltdown. Keyboard bullies and an overwhelming sense of being undervalued. I took it out on you. Sorry. Go Padres. John, I don't know what you're referring to, so please comment again. I wasn't insulted at whatever you did, right? Like, and my apologies. Maybe you're talking about Big Jim Grease. I don't know. Maybe it was on the postcast, but whatever it is, dude, the comments don't make me upset. It's fine. Like, you're totally good, but my apologies for thinking that, making you think that you offended me or whatever. We'll see. Speaking of interactions, RSVJR619 says, Javi, were you at the Padres game last night? Referring to the Mets game last Monday, by the way. Pretty sure I saw you trying to find your seats. I was saying Javi and you ignored me. All good though. Just trying to say hi to the East Coast Padres fan. Let me make it clear. I use this question just to comment. I don't have the biggest following in the world. I understand that. So this might sound a little bit narcissistic, but what I'm trying to say is, if you guys are ever like, if you see me, or if you just want to say hi, or if you want to DM, please do. I love interacting with you guys. It is no offense whatsoever. Frankly, I had a couple beers at that point, so it's possible I just genuinely did not know what was going on. The lights, it's a crowded place, so I absolutely didn't mean to ignore you, man. And I feel like, my bad. I actually saw someone wave at me in San Diego as well from their car. I don't know if you're a listener of the show or you were just saying hi, but, and you like the hat, right? I don't know what it is, but again, I just want to say, guys, please reach out. I would love it. Next, though, last question that we're going to talk about. 2 questions from @Cam Wordplay. Javi, at the trade deadline exactly 1 year ago, the Padres beat the Dodgers to move to 59 and 51, 4.5 games out of first place. Heading into Friday night, we are 60 and 49, now 62 and 50, by the way, and only 3 games behind the Dodgers, who made no significant moves at the deadline, but have some key pitchers coming back, at least temporarily, from injury. Do you feel better about our chances of overtaking the Dodgers and winning the World Series this year than you did on 8/1/24? Let's assume the Padres either win the division to earn a bye or survive the wild card playoff. Let's assume our starters for games 1 and 2 in the next round will be Michael King and Nick Pivetta. Based on what you know now, who are you going with in games 3 and 4? You have the luxury of choosing between Dylan Cease, Yu Darvish, Nestor Cortes, Randy Vasquez, JP Sears, and even Joe Musgrove. Which ones will you ride for more than 4 or 5 innings? So first of all, I do think it's possible they overtake the Dodgers. There's something off in LA. The problem is that, like what you said, is that they have a lot of injuries. So that would explain things. But it's Mookie Betts being bad this year, right? Apparently they want to give him a standing ovation. But Mookie Betts is, like, genuinely bad. Like, I'm not making this up, guys. This year, Mookie Betts has a 85 WRC+. Like, bad, right? He's a little bit like their Bogarts right now. Teoscar Hernandez having a down year. And a guy like him, I like him, but we sure it's going to get 100% better? I mean, he's got 16 home runs. He'll still be a good player, but is he going to be what he was last year? Max Muncy really making up for the lack of production from them. You still got Freddy Fermín. You still got Shohei. And then you've got Will Smith actually having the best WRC plus of any of their players. But I don't know. Tanner Scott has not been the player that they needed him to be. Yamamoto has slowed down a tiny bit, but he's still been great. But outside those dudes, is Glasnow going to stay healthy? Is Snell going to come back and be okay? Shohei Ohtani got removed from his last start, right? With some sort of injury issue. And then you had Roki Sasaki not be, like, he's still rookie, he's still young, he should be treated like a prospect, right? But I think some people were expecting that he'd be, like, a really, like, immediate contributor. He's not that, at least as of right now. So it's possible they overtake them. They're only a few games back. I could see it, man. Especially if the injuries linger longer. And hey, they got to lose the NL West at some point, right? So I could absolutely see that happening, and it is something the Padres should be aiming for. And then in terms of the game 4 and 5, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves with that, but I think it's Darvish, and I think they do a Dylan Cease. I think that they just have to trust the talent, depending on the team, right? Maybe some teams kill sliders and fastballs better. And then I think it depends on what we get out of Nestor Cortes, JP Sears, right? Randy Vasquez, even if he makes a return. And more importantly, I think that you also have to see what happens with Joe Musgrove's health. Going to be a big question. But if he's healthy and they're like, let's go, I could see a piggyback start. But like you said, embarrassment of riches. But I'm not going to project a little too much on that one. But we're running a little bit long on today's episode, guys. We're already at 29 minutes, so I gotta close this bad boy down. We'll finish some of the questions on tomorrow's show. But until that next time, everybody, you've been listening to the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful, my Friar Faithful homies. Take care.